They say, the committee of 7 members of Parliament, they say that Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister, misled the House of Parliament, misled the committee, breached the confidence of people and also undermined the democratic process. They also find him guilty of trying to intimidate the committee members themselves. The committee members were 7 parliamentarians, majority from his own party, but they represented 3 different political parties. So a cross-section party, and it's indicative, I think, in terms of recent years with Boris Johnson, but even in his early career, where he's accused of using disingenuous language, that he has been less than honest and frank, and that's why this report is quite damning. Had he not resigned last Friday, they would have recommended that he would have been suspended as Member of Parliament for 90 days, and they also do recommend that he loses his former Member of Parliament pass. There'll be a vote on that on Monday. Now that shows, I think, how grave the committee and its report finds this, and even though it's a technical aspect in terms of the committee, obviously they feel it's undermined the democratic process here in the UK.
So what does all this mean for the ruling Conservative Party? While they've been thinking about and talking about this, they've been presumably rather distracted from the business of government.
Well, that's what lots of people are talking about. How can they conduct the government? How can they conduct as an administration to try and honour the pledges they've made since the last election 2.5 years ago, when Boris Johnson won quite a large majority for them in this current Parliament? Since then, there have been 2 Prime Ministers, and Rishi Sunak is Prime Minister at the moment. He was Chancellor in Boris Johnson's government. Now, he doesn't want to talk about this report. When he was asked earlier today, he said, what report? He wants to talk about immigration. He wants to talk about migrants. He wants to talk about things which he hopes will keep the right-wing element of the Conservative Party, the ruling party here, happy. But, of course, there are still supporters of Boris Johnson within the Conservative Party. Some of them have been vocal today. There's supposed to be more of the membership of the Conservative Party across Britain who are supportive of Johnson because he's seen as a charismatic leader. He's seen as being successful in the way that he's dealt with the pandemic, dealt with delivering Brexit and so on. But on the whole, parliamentarians in here have been very, very judgmental of Boris Johnson, and it's unprecedented for a former Prime Minister to be accused and found guilty of misleading the Parliament.
So what happens now? What does this mean for the future of both the Conservative government and for Boris Johnson himself?
Well, let me give you a flavour of what his political opponents are saying, that he has treated the public with utter disdain, according to the Liberal Democrats. Labour are calling for him to apologise, as are people who've lost family members, loved ones during the pandemic. They want him to apologise because he's been found guilty of having gatherings, parties in Downing Street, in the Prime Minister's residence, when other people were following lockdown rules, when other people were not gathering in large numbers. Now, Johnson himself has said this is rubbish, it's a lie. He refutes, in a 6-page statement today, he refutes what is found there. But for the Conservatives, the pain continues because 2 members of Parliament are standing down, including Boris Johnson himself. That's 2 by-elections where the ruling party might lose those 2 seats. And another supporter of Boris Johnson, Nadine Dorries, she's said she will resign but has yet to do so. That means that the pain of discussing this and taking attention away from the business of government continues and is likely to continue until next week.